across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you for 3 hours of breaking news, provocative views and topical debate. Get involved, get on the phone, get on the show, get it off your chest and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. That's 0344 499 1000. It's Monday, April the 14th. Here is what's coming up. Absurd MPs ludicrously conclude there was no two-tier policing in the Southport summer riots. And instead of facing up to the obvious truth, members of the Home Affairs Committee release a report slamming the public and commentators for being disgraceful, for fueling, and I quote, unsubstantiated commentary that they say undermined brave cops battling violence on the streets. I'll tell you what's disgraceful. It's this bunch of backbenchers denying something we could all see and we can continue to see with our own eyes, just parroting Starmer's total nonsense about demonstrations not being protests, about the demonstrators not actually protesting. But they were protests, weren't they? They were protests against the migrant crisis that Keir's incompetent crew are just making worse and worse and worse. What do you make of these Westminster twonks announcing with a straight face that there was and is no such thing as two-tier policing in this country? And why did the cops furnish the shocked nation with misleading information that led to rampant misinformation? It was their fault, wasn't it? The Rozzers blame the Crown Prosecution Service for pulling a veil over the fact that dancehall killer Axel Rudakabana was the son of Rwandan immigrants, suggesting he was just a Welsh lad from Cardiff who moved north to Lancashire. Why were we, the people, kept in the dark? 0344 499 1000. In other news, after West Yorkshire Police's right on Rozzers banned white people from applying to join the force, say hi to the Greater Manchester Constabulary that has been sending woke squads out onto the streets, especially outside supermarkets, specifically to find ethnic and Muslim recruits. Why do more and more of our police forces seem to be pursuing policies of anti-white racism, banning white people from applying to become coppers? Why are they doing this? It's racist, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. Plus, amid self-styled socialist saviour Starmer's carefully choreographed theatre recalling Parliament as if the collapse of British Steel was utterly unexpected, is the reason for this industry disaster Labour's net zero lunacy. After Crazy Ed Miliband shut down all British coal mines, why should the newest Chinese owners be expected to lose £700,000 a day shipping in coking coal from the Far East? Is this our gormless Green government's fault? 0344 499 1000. By the way, the answer is yes. Not forgetting Mad Miliband's astonishing hypocrisy when it comes to his own massive carbon footprint and the planet-destroying jet setting of his officials as they waste a fortune flying the globe in business class. What's your message to Mr. Miliband and his climate change goons? And please keep it clean. 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, our exclusive story as we reveal that Labour has cruelly axed the National Compensation Scheme for victims of child sexual abuse. The government would love to help. but simply cannot afford to do the decent thing, and I quote, in this fiscal environment. So they can afford, though, £22 billion for some carbon capture nonsense, £15 billion for foreign aid, and a special extra 11.6 billion quid to fund climate change projects in developing countries, also known as foreign nations. Shouldn't we prioritise the welfare of traumatised British kids over climate change projects in foreign countries? Isn't the trauma of our sexually abused British kids more important than that? Shouldn't we be prioritising their welfare? What do you think? 03444991000. And also tonight, the latest grim developments on the migrant crisis front. Another 656 came across on Saturday. Isn't that special? 03444991000. Plus dire warnings as Britain prepares for the summer invasion of the killer hornets. I kid you not. Beware. Be careful. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Stand by for that later in the show. And finally, Harry, Meghan and all the royal news with our West Coast correspondent, Kinsey Schofield. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And let's not muck around. Let's go straight over to my first guest. A lot of stories to get through. And for the first half an hour, we'll be in the excellent company of the chair of the Great British PAC, Ben Habib. Welcome, Ben.
Good evening, Kevin. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure. Can we get straight on to what I think is absolutely shocking? These ridiculous people, these MPs on the Home Affairs Committee, who've compiled a report about what happened during the summer, specifically the summer riots, particularly in Southport and then in other northern cities and many other cities across the country. They have concluded in a big report that there is absolutely no evidence that there was any two-tier policing at all. Furthermore, these MPs, these representatives of the people, seek to criticise us and call us disgraceful for fueling a commentary that undermined the work of the brave police as they faced violence on the streets. I don't in any way want to undermine the brave work of the police. They did face violence on the police. But we cannot put up with this. This is ridiculous, Ben. Every person, every sentient individual in the country knows we have two-tier policing. Ask the housewives who got 3 years for putting hurty words on Facebook whether or not there was two-tier policing. You know, ask all the victims, all the rioters, not condoning what they did, but while other offenders across the nation wait 2 years to end up in prison, they were in court within days and in prison within a week. Two-tier policing. They were given disproportionately grotesque sentences, two-tier policing. I mean, for these MPs to turn around, not only to turn around and tell us there was no two-tier policing, but then to lambaste us for being disgraceful, for fueling a commentary that suggested this. I mean, how dare they do this? And they're just parroting what Keir Starmer said at the time. Oh, they're far-right thugs, saying that what happened in Southport and other northern cities was not protest. You might not like the form of it, but it was definitely protest. It was protest against the migrant crisis. We cannot have MPs staring us in the face, this Home Affairs Select Committee, staring us in the face and lying to us. That's what they're doing. They're lying. They're telling us there's no two-tier policing and there was no two-tier policing in the summer. There just was, wasn't there?
They're gaslighting the British people in the hope that they can shut the British people up. But let's just go back to where Keir Starmer started all of this. You know, he is responsible, actually, in my view, for the protests and the violence that took place after the tragic killings of those young girls in Southport. And the reason I say that is because instead of being upfront with the British people about the identity of the individual that killed those children, and we now discover that they were killed in the most brutal of circumstances. I think one of the girls was stabbed 125 times. 125 times. Just consider the violent nature of the individual required, obviously, to kill a child, but to stab 125 times and then attempt to take her head off. And these facts were kept from the British people for months and months and months. And perhaps there is some argument to be made that Rudakabana's right to a fair trial would have been compromised by...
I don't think there is, Ben. I don't think there is.
Yeah.
There never has. They introduced something completely new to justify what they did. Never before has anyone ever suggested that discussion of a case before anyone is charged could influence a court case, because until someone's charged, there is no court case. So what they did, so I'm not accepting what they're saying.
I wasn't saying that.
Yeah.
I was saying people may make that argument, but the argument, for the reasons you just pointed out, are fundamentally flawed. And also, there were other things that were revealed by the government even after Axel Rudakabana was charged, such as, for example, the possession that he had of Al-Qaeda workbooks for terrorism, the ricin that he held. These are things that were made public during the course of his trial. And if the Prime Minister had got up and said, this is a second-generation Rwandan who was born in Cardiff but now lives in Southport or near Southport, wherever the hell it was he lived, and he was in possession of these workbooks, he possessed ricin, and he perpetrated a most heinous crime, and I am going to make sure that this individual is brought to justice, and I'm going to make sure that the criminal justice system in this country protects British people from such an assault again in the future, and these are the steps I'm going to take, X, Y, and Z. There wouldn't have been protests, Kevin.
Yeah.
People would have felt the protective blanket of the British state around their shoulders, and they would have said, fine, we get it. It was an event, but the government and the Prime Minister are completely behind us. Instead, they lied to us. They used deflection. They said he was a Welshman, trying to conjure up the image of someone outstanding in his field with his sheep. This man was not a Welshman at any single level. He may have held a British passport, but he was not a Welshman. Holding a British passport does not give you the right to call yourself Welsh. You have to be culturally Welsh to be Welsh.
Yeah.
This guy had nothing, as far as I could see, in common with Welshmen. So the two-tier criminal justice to which we were subjected was kicked off even before the protests by the Prime Minister.
Well,
and then after the protest, sorry, I'll just quickly finish.
Yeah,
and then after the protest, as you said, he categorized everyone who was protesting as far right. He invoked the criminal justice system against them. He directed the police to arrest, detain, and then the criminal justice system to convict and incarcerate these people, many of whom had done no violence and had just said or tweeted stuff on social media, including Lucy Connolly, and of course, famously, though not much mentioned, Peter Lynch, who was a law-abiding, peaceful grandfather at the age of 61, who didn't do any damage to anyone, was convicted for 2 years and 8 months and hanged himself in prison. Keir Starmer is at the heart of two-tier criminal justice, and indeed a two-tier society that we now have in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I should say that the authorities have never actually officially commented on the death of Peter Lynch, but it has been widely reported that he hanged himself in despair. All he did, by the way, was to hold up a placard criticising two-tier policing, funnily enough, and also the migrant crisis. He was nabbed, ended up getting quite a long sentence, a couple of years, and hanged himself. So, according to the papers, I should say, though, the authorities have yet to comment on that. But what this absurd committee has conceded is that, along the lines of what you were just saying, that the kind of the tailoring of the information that we were allowed to receive created a vacuum into which misinformation poured, and that inflamed the disquiet on the street. So they are saying that by not telling us the truth, by keeping it from us, that there was a terrorist connection, that this guy had enough ricin poison to kill thousands of people, and he had a Al-Qaeda training manual. So there was a terrorist connection. By not telling us this, and as you say, acting like he was just some Welsh lad from Cardiff who moved north, they effectively lied to us. And this committee, whilst telling us there was no two-tier policing, which is an insult to our intelligence, and we should pick them up on it. It's disgusting that they're doing this. But it is conceding that Starmer and the gang did create an atmosphere into which misinformation thrived. Hence the level of the violence on the street. So even this lot of lackeys who were parroting what Starmer said at the time,
understood some of it.
Yeah, they did at least understand that the handling of the information was all wrong. That mustn't happen again, must it?
No, and let's not forget the role of Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, who, for reasons that are beyond me, parliamentarians adhered to his invocations, but he got up in Parliament and he said, we mustn't discuss this case in the Commons for fear of prejudicing the legal action being taken against Ruda Cabana. But there are things in this case which had nothing to do with the trial, which needed to be asked in Parliament, and under the protection of parliamentary privilege should have been asked, such as, for example, how much did Keir Starmer know about Ruda Cabana at day one? How much did Yvette Cooper know? Why were Merseyside police so quiet on the subject? Why were we not told about the nature of this man's history and so on and so forth? And so Keir Starmer is at the heart of the two-tier criminal justice system. Keir Starmer, as I've said, and this is a bit of a leap for this conversation, but I can evidence it if anyone challenges me, is inherently anti-British. He put a protective blanket, in a sense, around Ruda Cabana, and he exposed the British people. And it was the British people saying, we will not tolerate that, by getting up and protesting. And then he took a draconian form of action against the British people, many of whom were legitimately protesting, and 1,000 arrests were made within days, 400 convictions, 70 of whom didn't do anything violent at all and should be immediately released. They were put in jail, put in prison for things they said, not what they did. We don't just have a two-tier criminal justice system, we have a complete breakdown in our system. And for Lindsay Hoyle, the shutdown debate in Parliament, which is the only entity that could actually have had a proper debate on the subject and perhaps brought some sense to bear, was absolutely wrong. And even now, Kevin, with Ruda Cabana convicted, they don't have a discussion in Parliament. We've heard nothing in the Commons, nothing in the Commons about what a tragic unfolding of events all of this was.
The only thing I could say is, well, we were quite lucky that Lindsay Hoyle was actually in the chamber, because he's usually swanning around the world spending hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money on luxury travel. But you're right. I mean, people go, oh, Lindsay Hoyle's scrupulously fair. I'm always seeing him close down debates that are uncomfortable for Labour. Ooh, is he a Labour MP by any chance? Oh, he is. What a coincidence. Yeah. Give me a break. Give me a break. But you're right. It was disgraceful what he did. And there is no legal reason not to discuss a case before anyone is charged, because the damn case does not exist until someone is charged. It's as simple as that. And we must never be ordered around like that, because that was legal chicanery organised by two-tier. Listen, next up, let's talk about the police again, Ben. We've got another police force that seems to be pursuing a racist policy when it comes to recruiting, going purely for ethnic candidates for police officers. Whites need not apply. This is becoming something of a sickness. We'll talk about that next.
When atrocities of this scale, I mean, imagine like the appalling Manchester Arena attack times hundreds, that when that happens, so many people in our society are not on the side of the victims, but are on the side of the death cult, are chanting support for Hamas and Hezbollah on Britain's streets. Why within days were hundreds of thousands of our fellow Brits supporting the people who were the rapists, the jihadists, the beheaders?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to Ben Habib, chair of the Great British PAC, former deputy leader of Reform UK, of course. Ben, last week, this show, my show, broke this exclusive story at the time about West Yorkshire Police, which extraordinarily, members of that police force, the top cops, were very proud of their current policy, which is, it's on their website, this is 100%. Currently, white people are banned from applying to become police officers in West Yorkshire. That's the constabulary that includes Leeds as its main city. It's a big, big area. 300,000 crimes last year, soaring crime rate, but they're concentrating on their recruitment. So no white people are allowed to apply to the West Yorkshire Police. We pointed out several times last week, this policy is overtly racist. You are depriving people of the chance to become a copper purely on the basis of the colour of their skin. West Yorkshire Police say that it's positive action and they're sure it is within the law. I don't think they are, actually. I think they're chancing their arm. Anyway, it now becomes apparent that Greater Manchester Police, huge police force, has set up what they call, and I quote, the Positive Action Team. This is a squad of 5 or 6 officers who go out onto the streets and deliberately target ethnic minorities and Muslims. They try and find them. They stand around outside popular supermarkets like Lidl and Aldi in particular. And their job is to persuade these Muslim and ethnic kids, or young people, to apply to become coppers. And if they can get, say, a list of 40 in a day, here I've got 40 names here, the senior officers go, oh, you're a genius, well done, amazing. What these officers are telling us, they sort of turned whistleblower, is that they're told not to ask any of these potential coppers anything about their educational qualifications. Do they have any GCSEs, anything like that? And they're told not to worry too much if they can't speak very good English. So the top cop, the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, Stephen Watson, said positive action here extends to proactively reaching out to groups and encouraging them to join. Everybody is entitled to apply at the same time. They're all put through the same process. We choose the best people, and that is that. Well, they don't really, because they're going out to find deliberately ethnic Muslim minority people. So once again, you've got another police force that, in my view, or not in my view, as a matter of fact, is operating a policy of discrimination against white people. This is turning into a bit of a sickness amongst our woke coppers, isn't it?
It's not just our woke coppers. I think it is much wider than that. We saw the RAF doing the same. We saw GCHQ having a recruitment policy based on the colour of your skin, not the ability to spy on people or whatever it is that GCHQ does. This is absolutely an epidemic across the United Kingdom. And it is, I'm afraid, Kevin, it is given regulatory and legal cover, because progressive discrimination, as they call it, which I read just simply as discrimination,
Yeah.
is allowed. You can't discriminate in favor of white people, but if you were to discriminate in favor of people from an ethnic minority or religious minority belief, or with transgender ideology, minority sexual preferences, that is not just allowed, that is encouraged. That's what's called progressive discrimination. And as you've touched on and highlighted so well, actually that's deeply damaging, not just to our ability to police ourselves, because you get people, in the case of Manchester Police Force, who can't speak English, know nothing about policing, and are likely to pose a danger to themselves and the society that they're meant to be policing, but you actually completely hollow out the fabric of the institutions of the United Kingdom, including our businesses and so on. If we stop recruiting people based on their merit, we will be unable to police, we will be unable to defend ourselves, we will be unable to progress as an economy. We have to go back to discrimination based only on merit. And it is an inherently racist policy to progressively discriminate in favor of someone. And I can make no argument for it. When I grew up in this country, and we're of a similar age, I think, I was drilled that everyone was equal, and the color of your skin didn't matter. It was the content of your character. Someone very great in the not too distant past said that, and it's patently true. It's what you can contribute to society that matters, not what color you are or where you came from or what your religious beliefs are. And so we've lost the plot in this country, and it's testimony again, Kevin, to the two-tier policing that we were discussing, the two-tier criminal justice system. And that's why I said we have a two-tier society.
And this is
we are completely hijacked.
This is total two-tier recruitment to the exclusion of white people. But the chief constable in West Yorkshire, a guy called John Robbins, in a response to everybody saying, wait a minute, this is racist, this is wrong, you are discriminating against people purely for the colour of their skin. And by the way, Ben, in the field of policing, you know, if you must have racial quotas in certain areas, I mean, if you want to do that, fine, but it shouldn't be in operation when it comes to policing. This is very important. This is about safety on the streets. This is about catching dangerous criminals. This is about keeping the public safe. These are important jobs. You only give these jobs to the very best qualified people, purely on the basis of their qualifications, not on the basis of their colour of their skin. But Chief Constable John Robbins, in response to the protest about his racist policies, says that he wants discrimination against white candidates to be made fully legal. What on earth do these people think they're talking about?
Yeah, well, I can't make the case for any racial quotas in any walk of life. The entire United Kingdom should operate on merit, your ability to do the job for which you are wanted. And I remember absolutely holding my head in my hand when Sadiq Khan said at least 40% of the Met should be from ethnic minorities because 40% of London is from ethnic minorities. That is the most daft statement ever made. And there's no way to describe such statements as other than racist. But racism, it apparently seems to be in modern United Kingdom, only capable of being perpetrated by white people against ethnic minorities. When you turn racism on its head, you call it progressive discrimination. But actually, as you said, it's just racism. Yeah. We can't have racism at any level. It's got to stop.
Just imagine, Ben, if it was the other way around. Imagine if West Yorkshire Police right now was saying black people are banned. Only white people can apply at the moment. Imagine that. We, in our race, in our desire to rush to be unracist and right on, these idiot coppers are going too far, and they're descending into outright racism against white people.
Absolutely. I saw a clip, by the way. You've got to be quite suspicious of what you see on Twitter, but I saw a clip today on Twitter, on X, of a policeman questioning an elderly...
Speak English.
Yeah, the speak English thing. And he said, if you ask someone to speak English, that could be classed as a hate crime. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
You know, it would be helpful if people spoke English in England.
Yeah.
It would be helpful. In fact, it should be a prerequisite for settling in the country, as far as I'm concerned. How the hell did that become racist or a hate crime? We are absolutely immolating ourselves on the altar of this completely evil ideology.
We certainly are, Ben, and it's very good to talk to you. Great words, as usual. Thank you very much for your time. Ben Habib, the chair of the Great British PAC. Let me know what you think. We have got anti-white racism now, and it's thriving in our police forces. That can't be good, can it? 03444991000 and let me know what you think about these MPs from the Home Affairs Committee who have stared the nation in the face and told us there is no such thing as two-tier policing. It didn't happen in Southport. It didn't happen in the Southport riots. Who the hell are these jumped up little backbenchers? Who do they think they're kidding? 03444991000. Next up, we're going to talk about British Steel, so stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about British Steel and let's go straight over to my next guest. He'll be with me until 8 o'clock. It's always a pleasure to welcome him to the show. He is the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kilsley. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, Kev. It's great to see you.
Always a pleasure, mate. Now, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about what I would suggest on Saturday was the preposterous theatre of Starmer's deliberately dramatic emergency Saturday House of Commons session. Now, the subtext of this emergency session, the government knew about it. Everybody knew that the Chinese-owned British Steel company was going down the pan, mainly because of Ed Miliband's mad net zero policies. We've known for months, certainly weeks, that the furnaces in Scunthorpe were at great danger of closing down. Once you close steel furnaces down, they're very hard to restart. The government's gone into emergency mode, has effectively nationalised them now, with the Chinese hanging on by their fingernails. This is the company called Jingye. Now, the point is, the government's been, these Jingye bad actors, they weren't genuine during our discussions and they've deliberately run this down and so on and so forth. Well, what has happened, actually, Philip, is this, that Jingye, now I would agree that perhaps Boris Johnson and his Tory gang should have been a bit more circumspect about allowing the Chinese to buy British steel, but they weren't. But here we are, what is it now, 4 or 5 years on, and guess what? Jingye has decided that because of Ed Miliband's new policies, in which he has closed down every single coal mine in this country, and that they now have to ship in coal and coke from the Far East, as opposed from a coal mine just down the road, that Jingye, the Labour go, these terrible Chinese people, they've let us down, they've been disingenuous. Well, Ed Miliband's net zero policies have landed Jingye, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, by the way, they've landed them with a £700,000 a day deficit. They're losing 700 grand a day having to ship in coke from the Far East because Ed Miliband closed down all the coal mines. So can you blame the Chinese for saying, you know what, we're not going to play this anymore, we're out of here? Can you blame them? It's Ed Miliband and this gormless Green government's fault, this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so appalling on so many levels. I mean, probably like you, if you were on social media on Saturday, all of a sudden, all you could see were selfies of Labour MPs on trains going to Westminster saying, look, I'm working on a Saturday. It's amazing, isn't it? Oh, and by the way, I'm a patriot.
Yeah. Okay, we're off to London to save British steel. You got it in trouble in the first place, you idiot.
So there was... And they were saying, oh, my God, we're patriots as well. So there was something about being terrified of Nigel Farage, Richard Tyson reform as well, because they were pushing the agenda on this. So that's one thing. It was all politics. It wasn't any of the whole kind of thing, we're saving British steel. And as you correctly say, we're in a position where Red China are in charge of our steel industry, okay? And there's a potential that it could have, our only steel making plant would be going over to Red China. It's utterly insane, and it's all about net zero. What we're in a position now that is essentially they're just going to be saying, well, enough about net zero. Let's put it away, because they're committed to growth, right? And if you are committed to growth, you can't be committed to environmentalism. It's one or the other. It's not both, okay?
Yeah.
So what I'm concerned about here is they're just going to push this to the side. They're just going to forget about it. Like they've forgotten about pronouns and trans and all of that embarrassing stuff. Let's just forget about it. We were never really that connected to it anyway. But what about what's been happening to, a couple of generations of children now who are obsessed and terrified of global boiling? Is global boiling going to go back down to global warming now, and we're just going to get rid of it? What about those poor kids who are indoctrinated into the green agenda? What about all of the money we've spent? I've got it written down here, Kev. Climate Change and Sustainable Energy Act 2006. We've had to pay for renewables subsidies for all of that time. That's why our bills are so huge. That's why we pay the most in Europe, and it's because of this indoctrination. It's because of this cultish behaviour, and they're just going to quietly let it go, because all of a sudden they're into growth, they're into steel. And what about all of the, it's not just them, but what about the cities like Sheffield, for example? Talking about Scunthorpe here, but as I grew up in the 1970s and 1980s, it was Sheffield. Now, it's not down to them. It's been deindustrialization for years and years and years. But this whole agenda has been so detrimental to us, and we now have no heavy industry. We've got one place in Scunthorpe, for God's sake.
They should have been a little bit more circumspect act back in last September when they just let the Port Talbot plant die because they said, oh, it's decrepit and we can never get it up to speed when it comes to our net zero carbon emission ambitions. Therefore, we'll just let that fade. What they didn't realise, what they hadn't noticed, was there was a new crisis brewing in the north, as in Scunthorpe. As I say, they are expecting the Chinese owners. You can argue to blue in the teeth that, we should never have sold it to the Chinese. I would agree with that, but we're lumbered with that. Now, our government, until this weekend, was expecting the Chinese owners, Yingye, to carry on losing 700 grand a day because Ed Miliband had closed all the local coal mines down, and now they have to ship in the coke required to make steel from the Far East, from Japan, places like that. And so much so that now they're going to have to carry on doing that. They're talking about bringing in the Navy to make sure these convoys are safe, so the expense continues to soar. And yes, this emergency legislation at the weekend kept the furnaces going, and the government will continue to fund this industry, basically nationalise it. It's good that jobs have been saved, but now our government, on behalf of the taxpayers, is going to run British Steel at Scunthorpe at a massive loss. Jonathan Reynolds admitted this. We are going to lose money. So that's where we're at, and that is all down to this net zero mania. It's all down to Ed Miliband and his deranged climate change zealotry that the government's adopted. This is what's happened. We are at this point because of our government is gormlessly green.
It is. If you adopt these green policies, you've got to prepare for catastrophe, and of course we don't do that because when you're blinded by utopianism, that doesn't work. But you also think that other people are blinded by utopianism. I've got news for you: the Chinese aren't. Right? The Chinese aren't.
No, they're not.
They're hard communists. But just to get back, Kev, you made that really good point about Port Talbot. 2,800 jobs there gone. 2,800 jobs there gone. That went because politics wasn't as involved. Politics is massively involved now. They're fighting reform and reformer on their tail. It's Scunthorpe, for God's sake, okay? So it's all about politics. Their hearts are absolutely green. Nothing's changed, okay? They're still the same old socialists, but now they're having to backtrack and backtrack and backtrack. What we've got to do is remember this, okay? We've really got to remember this, and we've got to remember the catastrophic green agenda that has been with us for God knows how long now, 20 years, something like that. And this is how stupid it is. Just one more point, right?
Yeah, go on.
Everybody's talking about global boiling now, okay?
You know who started that? That was that idiot, the UN General Secretary, Antonio Guterres. He's the one that said we don't have to worry about global warming now. We have to worry about global boiling. And as I said at the time, well, Antonio, can you point to anywhere where something is boiling because of climate change? I don't think you can.
But the point is, absolutely, it's just nonsense. But the point is, only 50 years ago, we were talking about global freezing. Now,
that's right.
Things can't change in such a short time, okay? So this is cherry-picking research. This is being focused on a particular kind of agenda, and they're paying for it now. And my God, they're really going to have to pay for it because it's going to destroy them. It's going to destroy any shred of credibility that they had. And my God, they have many.
Yeah, they've got us. This government. Look, it was the Tories' fault. They sold British Steel to the Chinese. Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister at the time. There is no greater green nutter than him. He's almost as bad as Miliband. So the Tories went down this net zero rabbit hole. We are now further down that rabbit hole, and we got to get out because if we don't, this nation is doomed. These furnaces won't last long like this. And this is all down to this gormless green claptrap that Ed Miliband and Starmer and his stupid government is imposing on this nation. And unless they get real, this nation is in big trouble. So there we are, Philip, because next up we'll be talking about old Ed again, because there's nothing worse, there's only one thing worse than a climate change zealot, and that's a climate change zealot who's a massive hypocrite, and that's Ed. We'll talk about that after these messages.
When atrocities of this scale, I mean, imagine like the appalling Manchester Arena attack times hundreds, that when that happens, so many people in our society are not on the side of the victims, but are on the side of the death cult, are chanting support for Hamas and Hezbollah on Britain's streets. Why within days were hundreds of thousands of our fellow Brits supporting the people who were the rapists, the jihadists, the beheaders?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kilsley. Philip, there's nothing that the British public hate more than financial hypocrites. And Ed Miliband is right up there as one of the great hypocrites of all time, lecturing all of us about how we must adapt our lifestyles to save the planet. Maybe don't go on that holiday to Spain. You know, don't use your car. Get onto public transport. We've got a planet to save here. He, it turns out, has done 45,000 miles in the air since Labour were elected 9 months ago. Always first or business class, by the way. He has spent more than 10 times in the air destroying the planet than his Tory predecessor, and actually his carbon footprint is 12 times larger than the average Brit. It gets worse. He runs the DEFRA department, the Department of Agriculture and Environment. They spent nearly £44,000 for officials between July and December not just on flights, on domestic flights, flights around Britain. You know, sheer hypocrisy. You don't need to fly anywhere in Britain, but this Ed's mob did. Also, they took from, I think it's from July to December, these people took 237 business and premium economy global flights, costing taxpayers a sky-high £700,000. So these people are flying everywhere, first and business class, particularly Ed Miliband, clocking up massive carbon footprints, huge carbon emissions as they travel the planet in some style, first and premium economy class and business class. And this is from the Net Zero Secretary, who's busy destroying British industry, as we just discussed, and has caused the highest energy bills in the world, 5 times higher than America. He's just a massive, great hypocrite, isn't he? Telling us, you know, do as I say, not what as I do.
He is. I mean, this is Jet Set Eddie, isn't it? Our green saviour. And just to add to a couple of those stats or those prices you've just given there, 20k on a trip to New York. Okay, $7,000 on a flight to Washington. Now I'm in the wrong job. I'm really in $7,000 for a flight to Washington. People really dislike hypocrisy. People really dislike grotesque waste. And this is really grotesque waste, especially when he's telling working families, you know, people who have to scrimp and save to take their children on holiday once a year, flying economy. The message is that, oh, you're going to be shamed if you do that. You really shouldn't do that. But he knows better because he's our green saviour. This puts me in mind of the story we talked about a couple of weeks ago. It's very similar, isn't it? This is very similar to the Lindsay Hoyle story.
Yeah.
It's another one. It's another one of those absurd and yet revolting stories, which really shows us where we stand in relation to them. It really shows us what they think of us. They think we're idiots. They treat us like idiots. They think they can get away with anything. We have to tell them, we have to show them at the ballot box that they really can't.
I think that both Miliband and, as you quite rightly cited, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, they sum up why we've got to do something about this. These politicians taking public sector money and just giving themselves these lavish lifestyles. As you say, I think they look at us, Joe Public, and think we're just idiots and that we're just there to fund their fabulous flying around the world and staying in flash hotels and eating wonderful meals. We're there just to do that. Well, I think we're reaching some kind of crisis point here. I think people have had enough. They look at Lindsay Hoyle, they look at Ed Miliband and think, you are just a pair of hypocrites. You don't need to make all these journeys. Why are you doing it? So I do think we might be just slowly arriving at a point where the public are going to say, no more of this, no more.
I think there are a few things that are certainties in life. One is death, one is taxes, and one is socialists spaffing money against the wall. So we're going to get much more of this. What we've got to do as voters, and we'll obviously remind people, but people have got to kind of file this away in their minds and really remember all of these instances and really remember how they felt when they were looking at their gas bills and their electricity bills and knowing having to pay for all of this renewables nonsense. And these idiots are spending millions on their houses. They're flying around the world. They're flying around the country, for God's sake. Yeah. Okay. They never heard of Zoom. They're flying around the country. We have to remember these things. Okay. And we have to be very careful about who we vote for. That's the message, isn't it? That's the ultimate message that we have to push and push and push. Because, by God, if they get in again, right, it's going to be the end of the country. It really is that bad. We are beyond crisis point. The plane has into the mountain. Okay, we're here. We need to do something about it.
You're so right, and I think the events of the weekend showed us just that. And let's not forget that nobody needed that Saturday piece of drama that Keir Starmer created. He just positioned himself, I am the socialist saviour of the nation, I will nationalise in the nick of time and all that. Well, he's known about it for months, certainly weeks. So what he did there was he created that situation, and let me tell you, I'm well aware that a lot of MPs are not very happy with him for ruining their holidays. And did you see all those Labour MPs all posting pictures, going back to London to save British Steel and all that? You know, several of them by aeroplanes, by the way. Oh, so you're going to destroy the planet while coming back to London to save British Steel. Honestly, I think these people just think we're utter idiots and that we can't work out what's going on. They only need to save British Steel because they have plunged it into an existential crisis. To say the least, it is going to struggle to survive. Philip, pleasure to talk to you. Let's get you on again later in the week. That was Philip Kilsley, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Let me know what you think about what he was saying. What do you make of Ed Miliband's net zero hypocrisy? Jetting 45,000 miles he's done since he became net zero. He's always in the air, first class and business class. Utter hypocrisy. Do as I say, not what as I do. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. After the news, we're going to be talking to a victim of child sex abuse who is going to be deprived of the compensation she would have got, but Labour has just axed compensation to child sex abuse victims. That's nice, isn't it? So stick around, stay tuned for that after the news.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, this is a story about Labour cancelling, axing a very important scheme to compensate the child victims of sexual abuse. We're talking about people who found themselves sexually abused in institutions like child care homes, what we used to call orphanages, schools, that sort of thing. So people who were in effect being looked after by the state and the authorities, but were let down and were sexually abused in those positions. So some time ago, when Rishi was still in power, he came up with this, that we would create a proper child sex abuse compensation scheme. So there's an automatic place where the victims of child sex abuse, be it at school, be it at an institution, be it at their care home, had recourse. An automatic place they could go to get compensation. Well, Labour has axed that scheme, saying it can't afford it in the current fiscal environment. We'll talk about some of the things it does seem to be able to afford right now in just a little while. But to discuss this scheme, which was set up as a recommendation by the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, a national payout scheme that has now been axed. To discuss this is someone who should have got some money from this scheme, and that is she's a child abuse victim, Adela Sasansera. Welcome to the show, Adela.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. Before we talk, this is Jess Phillips, the Minister for Safeguarding and Violence Against Women, talking about this proposal to get people like you the compensation they deserve. So this is Jess Phillips.
On the ICSA proposal for a wider national redress scheme for all victims and survivors of child sexual abuse in institutional settings, the scale of that proposal demands that it is considered in the context of the spending review later this year, and we will make further updates at that stage.
Well, Adela, the update now is they've axed it, so people like you aren't going to get any money from this scheme. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it was never really about money for me. It was none of us have really been able to find any justice or really any support. There's a few councils around London that have done small schemes, but obviously most people who are abused in institutions moved away from the area they grew up, like myself, and so you can't access any support in the new area where you live. And I just wrote to the Home Office to find out what was going on, because basically this was not made public knowledge. We were not told in the media that it had been scrapped. The first I heard of it was when I received the email from the Home Office saying that we're not, as a country, physically able to afford the redress scheme. And I believe there were 725 people in the Truth Project, so it wasn't that many of us.
Yeah, so we've got to stress that, like yourself, this is for people, poor young victims who found themselves sexually abused in what you might call an institutional setting. In other words, at one point you were in a child's care home, weren't you? And that's your claim to be able to, should be your claim to be able to get some compensation on the child sex abuse, or from this fund that has now been cancelled. Can you tell us your story, Adela? You were in a, as I say, a sort of children's care home?
Yeah, I was put into a children's home when I was around 12, and I went through several children's homes and foster homes. I was sexually abused in my time in one of the children's homes, not the other one. But you know, being involved with adults led to me, similar with what's going on with the grooming gang situation. Kids that were in care were targeted by adults, and that led to what we now call sex trafficking. But obviously, years ago in the 90s, you were called like a child prostitute, things like that. So it wasn't something that you'd come forward and really speak about. It's only been like the past few years that people have started to talk about trafficking, and that being something that happens in the UK as well. So yeah, it went on for many years.
and if I can put it this way, you were born male, but you feel that the abuse that you went through kind of caused you to be trans. Is that a fair summary of what happened? Tell me your story.
No, I wouldn't say that. I was born with an intersex condition, which meant that I didn't have puberty and I didn't develop properly, but I was raised as a male. But I work with survivors. I've worked with people who have been in similar situations to me for many years, and there seems to be a lot of LGBTQ survivors that have been through similar things. And like what I did say was, in the 90s, there was a trafficking ring up and down the whole country. And these people weren't gay men. They were predators who knew that there would be young boys and girls without family who were in gay clubs, because back then you didn't need ID, you know.
Right.
And it was up and down the country. And there were other people that went through that with me who've spoken to the police about the same people, and nothing's been done.
So, I mean, tell me again the timing. When did you? I mean, you assumed, along with a lot of your compatriots from those days, that you would be in line for this compensation.
No, I didn't. I didn't know anything about compensation. No. The first I heard about that was in 2023, when Rishi Sunak made it public knowledge, because that only came out of the recommendations. There were 87 recommendations from the Truth Project. I only went into the Truth Project to give my story because I didn't want it to happen to other people in the future.
Okay, so have you found it very difficult to actually be able to talk to anybody about what it is that you're seeking? I mean, it's not necessarily just financial compensation we're talking about, is it? It's a sort of sense of justice, your story to be told, what happened to you. You won't get justice unless people understand how you and your friends were abused.
It's, as I said before, it wasn't about compensation. There was no talk of compensation when they called the inquiry. The inquiry was meant to be recommendations because I know children in care. I've got a very good friend who runs a charity called Care Leavers Matter, and you know, we know that these things are still happening, and in actual fact it's a lot worse now because they're private homes. They're not institutions run by local authorities. They're run as businesses, and children are being bid on. So the more children that come in, if you know what I mean, there's more children coming in. They're making profit on that because they're bidding on children, you know, these private companies. And, you know, my reason for going into the Truth Project was to give my story so the government know what's going on. I mean, now this is many years later, I've kind of realised they knew what was going on all along.
And who were the people doing the abuse? I mean, you said that they knew the system. Were they working at the kind of care homes that you were working at, or just hanging out there, or who were they?
No, well, it's hard to say. There were definitely people that were working there, of course, but like the first home that I was in was called a secure unit. There was no reason for me to be there because I was a very studious, shy young person, but they put me in there because there were no beds elsewhere. And yet cars would come in, and it was a gated, you know, it was like a prison. Cars would come in to the car park, so someone was letting them in. And there was, you know, lots of drugs involved, and we would go off and come back with gifts.
All right, okay.
And it was never questioned.
And if you could get to talk to Jess Phillips, Adela, what would you say to her now?
I'm absolutely appalled, you know, because I was a lefty all my life, and me, myself, and a lot of people from my community have really changed our opinions politically since this government's come in, because it's just been one thing after another. But what's really hurt me the most is yesterday I saw the bill for predators who are claiming help with their criminal expenses.
Yeah.
And yet we're being told if we want to get compensation, we have to get a private lawyer because the government can't afford to compensate us. And I just really wanted to whistleblow this to let you guys know, because no one's told any of us and it's not been in the press.
I'm glad that you have, Adela. And you're referring to one grooming gang, aren't you? I think in Rotherham that got £606,000 worth of legal aid. Now,
Yes.
the government is also saying that this whole compensation system or scheme is now too expensive for this week. This is their quote. We can't afford this, quotes, in the current fiscal environment. But as I pointed out earlier, it does seem the government can afford £22 billion for a carbon capture scheme in Liverpool, £15 billion for foreign aid to foreign countries, and £11.6 billion this year special fund to help climate change projects in developing countries. So they can afford all of that, but they can't afford to look after the welfare of people like you who've suffered at the hands of child sex abusers in national institutions.
Well, I think that's because we've all got one thing in common. The survivors, we've all got one thing in common. We're from a certain demographic of the population. We're from a certain class of the population. And, you know, we were unwanted children. We were labelled troubled children. We were abused children. So we were just fodder for these people. And this is still going on now, you know.
Well, I'll tell you what, Adela, it's not fair, and we're not going to drop the ball on this. It's really good to talk to you.
Thank you.
We'll stay in touch with you. That's Adela Sassensera, a child abuse victim at a national care home. And let's cross over now. He's been waiting patiently to the president of the Association of Child Abuse Lawyers, Peter Garsden. Peter, sorry to have kept you, but you heard Adela's harrowing story there. She's just one kid who was abused out of many around the country, we think thousands. What's your thoughts on the fact that Adela was at pains to say for her it's not about the money, but for a lot of the kids it will be. And what are your thoughts at the fact that the government has suddenly axed this scheme, so there's no more compensation for the victims of child sexual abuse at the government's institutions around the country? What's your feelings?
Well, I think it's absolutely appalling that the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse sat for 7 years. They listened to 7,000 witnesses and looked at 2 million pieces of paper, and they made 20 recommendations. So they weren't half-baked recommendations that should be rejected. They were serious recommendations that should be adopted. And we have to remember that we're talking about some of the most vulnerable members of our society. They are probably the highest priority of individual that should be looked after. So the reason this redress scheme was recommended by the inquiry was that the present civil system has so many hurdles that many individuals were not getting any justice. And you're right in saying it's not about money, it's about being believed, it's about their truths being heard and people apologising for what has gone wrong. Money is the only thing that our system can offer them to compensate them for a ruined life. But the reason the redress scheme was coming in was that it would be a no-fault, no time limit system that would be fair and easy for individuals who couldn't get any justice, because we turn away probably 6 out of 10 cases because of the legal hurdles that there are in the present civil system. So this scheme was going to be time limited. It was going to last for 3 years. It would be contributed to by the institutions and the charities that ran these homes. So there would the whole burden does not fall upon the government. And if you compare it with the cost that you've just mentioned in the previous item, then it's a scheme that should have been accepted and should have been brought in. So I'm appalled that it's been rejected. I don't really understand why.
Well, I would have thought that there's not many more things more important than the welfare of children who've been let down by the state and been sexually abused in state institutions.
Exactly.
Our government appears to be prioritising climate change schemes in foreign countries, and a £22 billion carbon capture scheme in Liverpool that most people say won't even work. So they're spending fortunes on their green obsession. Now is not the time to discuss the veracity of their policies and what they think, but they're spending a fortune on all of this, giving fortunes to foreign countries for their own climate change schemes in developing countries. 22 billion carbon capture, 15 billion foreign aid generally, and yet they cannot spend a penny. They say they can't spend a single penny on the welfare of children who've been abused while in the state system. There's something wrong about that, isn't there?
Oh, completely. I mean, what is even more annoying is that the Conservative government last May said that they would introduce a redress scheme. And I can quote Rishi Sunak, who said, while nothing will make up for how badly they were let down or the abuse that they suffered, we must make sure the victims and survivors get the support they need and redress they deserve. And the Conservative government, this isn't a political point, it's just frustrating that a Labour government comes into power. They scrapped the scheme that the previous Conservative government a year ago had said should be introduced, and they were very supportive and explained why. The other point, of course, is that there is presently a redress scheme like this in both Scotland and Northern Ireland. So why they have a scheme and we can't have one when arguably we're a bigger government with greater resources, defies belief, quite honestly.
How many kids are we talking about who you think would be in line for some kind of compensation here, Peter?
Well, the oft-quoted statistic says that 1 in 4 of the population are victims of abuse, and that covers all types of abuse, obviously. So if there's a population of 60 million people, that's 25 million people who are potentially eligible. And that's just the present population, bearing in mind that we're probably going back 30 or 40 years in terms of abuse that took place many years ago. So it could be considerably more than that.
Let me ask you a final question. I mean, what do you think about a government that last week, somewhat shockingly, last Tuesday, announced, oh, by the way, we won't be holding any inquiries into the rape gang scandal. I could call it the grooming gang scandal, but always strikes me as being a bit too much of a euphemism, that. We'll get no inquiry now into the biggest sexual scandal ever to hit this country. They're talking about as many as 250,000 vulnerable white working class girls, many of them underage. Last week, this government announced no inquiries whatsoever into that. And now they're calling off this compensation scheme as well. What is going on with this government? It's got its priorities all wrong when it comes to child welfare, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, I'm a father, and my children are the most important things in my life, and they are the most important thing, and they should be given priority. So the fact that they haven't gone up the priority list high enough, I think is scandalous, frankly. It's clearly down to money, and I was quite shocked when I read the Home Office response, and they mentioned the words that it was the cause of the current fiscal environment.
Yeah.
I didn't think they'd ever admit that. And the reason I think we don't have a public inquiry into grooming gangs is for the same reason, because it's expensive. And I think, what price abuse survivors and protection of children, I would ask.
Absolutely, Peter. Peter, very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. It's Peter Garsden, President of the Association of Child Abuse Lawyers. Let me know what you think about that. No compensation for thousands of kids victims of child sex abuse when they should have been under the protective wing of the government in national institutions like care homes for kids, like schools, etc., etc. That's We did have a scheme where kids abused under government care, if you like, under the care of the nation, had automatic redress to this compensation scheme. Now they've got automatic redress to nothing. Not going to get any money at all. That's good, isn't it? What do you think about this government? 03444991000. When we come back, the migrant crisis is looking pretty bad again. More and more of them coming over at the weekend. I'll give you the numbers and you won't like them. Stay tuned for that.
When atrocities of this scale, I mean, imagine like the appalling Manchester Arena attack times hundreds, that when that happens, so many people in our society are not on the side of the victims, but are on the side of the death cult, are chanting support for Hamas and Hezbollah on Britain's streets. Why within days were hundreds of thousands of our fellow Brits supporting the people who were the rapists, the jihadists, the beheaders?
Before July last year, before the general election, we had some advanced negotiations with this company to put considerably more investment into the UK, into the transition to electric arc furnaces. And we think that the government dropped the ball when they came in July. They had no plan. When we asked them about this in the Commons, they would just say they were developing a steel strategy. And what we can see is that they've dropped the ball.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm a pretty tough guy, as you all know, but I'm terrified of insects. I've got a real phobia about insects, so I'm not particularly pleased that in a little while we're going to be talking about the invasion of the Asian hornets. These are killer hornets. They hunt in packs and they have been known to kill people because their sting is so poisonous and they sting en masse. They're not very nice creatures. Now, they've been making their way up through Europe for some years now. Anyway, they're pretty much here. They've already made it here. And there's a lot of vigilance going on in the Channel Islands because that's where they land before they complete the final section of their journey to Britain. More and more of them coming. Anyway, the conditions now are ripe for the invasion of the killer hornets. It could be very bad this summer. They are reporting unprecedented numbers being seen in the Channel Islands. These hornets, by the way, they love beer gardens, so if you like a drink outside in the summer, they tend to hover over beer gardens. They're not the biggest hornets you've ever seen, but as I say, big stings, they hunt in packs, and they've been known to kill people, so they're not very nice, and they're certainly not very nice to our indigenous insect population. So invasion of the killer hornets, we'll bring you that story in just a little while. But first, let's talk about the invasion of the migrants, which continues apace. Over the weekend, Friday, 180 illegal channel crossings, and guess what? On Saturday, check this out, 656. So, and still they come. Let's talk to, he's the research director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Hello, Robert.
Evening, Kev.
Well, here we go again, same old topic really, but just an indication that, on Saturday, 656 came across in 11 boats. That is a bumper amount. That is a huge amount of people to come in one day. I can't quite work out the rhythm of all this, because suddenly yesterday there was no one. But the point is, Robert, the weather is getting good and the migrants are coming over, and this has brought into sharp focus that this government is doing nothing about it, nothing to stop them whatsoever, is it?
No, it's not at all. And, I think we're now actually, I think it's safe to say, in uncharted waters when it comes to this crisis. We are now actually seeing a year that is on course to be a record year when it comes to individuals coming across the channel. We're now on about a rate that's 30% higher than we were this time last year. So far from actually grappling this crisis. And, you and I both very pined at the Tories' handling of this and, pointed out that their Rwanda plan wasn't going to work because of the ECHR. But the Labour Party have come in and scrapped absolutely everything that the Conservatives at least got the kind of sense would work, and had kind of identified something in human nature that if you have a deterrent and you make things very unpalatable for an individual looking to come, then they are less likely to come. So the Labour Party have scrapped that. And keep blabbering on about this plan that they keep assuring us will eventually bear fruits and we will start to see the numbers come down. But it's not coming yet. We're not seeing any of those so-called benefits. And the fact that they keep still having the audacity to claim that they're gripping this problem is shameless, quite frankly.
Yeah, you say that they insist their policy will, in the fullness of time, bear fruit. Their policy is to smash the gangs, as Keir Starmer never tires of repeating, smash the evil people smuggling gangs. Well, the problem with that policy is so far they haven't smashed any people smuggling gangs. They haven't caught any. As I always say, it's a flawed strategy. It's not going to work because there will always be people smuggling gangs as long as there are people to smuggle, as in the migrants. You've got to stop the migrants. But that notwithstanding, how can they say that their policy, their strategy will bear fruit when it hasn't borne any fruit whatsoever for 9 months?
Well, I guess we have to kind of assume what their desired outcome is. You have to kind of judge policies, I suppose, ultimately from their outcome. And I think we have to look at what the Labour Party is doing and the fact that they're in hock and often far too beholden to these international courts, these kind of senses of human rights. We can't forget the Attorney General, Keir Starmer, have very, very successful human rights backgrounds as well. So these are individuals that are coming at the issue from a particularly different perspective than one that the large majority of the British public would come at. We view it as a national security threat. We view it, and many people view it as an invasion. Many people see it as entirely unjust that we're spending £6 billion a year to deal with this crisis. But these individuals that are actually calling the shots, in many cases, view them as legitimate asylum seekers and view these as kind of individuals hard down on their luck and therefore worthy of every benevolence that the British state can throw upon them. And I think that's the real problem that we've got in the real juxtaposition between where the UK government is and the British public. And I think it's one that's going to cause a lot more tension because they're quite frankly at this point they're clothed. They haven't got the ideological or the intellectual positioning to actually identify why people are so annoyed by this. They're talking a lot about returns of individuals and the fact that they've upped returns on the Tory numbers. not very hard to do. The Tory numbers were woefully low, but those individuals that the Labour Party are actually returning are low-hanging fruit. In many cases, they're voluntary. In many cases, they're individuals that we've had to actually pay to leave as well. So I think we have to judge the Labour Party's position and their views on this by the outcomes that we're now seeing.
And they're gaslighting us, basically. I think we're pretty much, if we're not over it, we're almost over the 8,000 mark now. And I've heard reports that we're sort of 30% up on what we have been in the past. Meanwhile, Keir and Cooper, Calamity Cooper, the Home Secretary, stare us in the face and say, we've got this policy, it's sure as hell going to work. Well, it hasn't worked, and the numbers are rising. They are not so much increasing as soaring. It's kind of weird to have a government telling us, oh, no, don't worry, be patient, we've got a brilliant policy, it will work, when we can all see it absolutely is not working. They're just gaslighting us, aren't they?
They absolutely are. In a way, you have to admire the audacity of these individuals. Of course, they're not prepared at all to actually have a frank conversation with the British public, because, of course, the small boats, those entering, are only actually a part of the problem as well. What we also need to look at is the rates of asylum being granted, which seem to be, far too high. There's, huge problems with the way the Home Office is actually processing these cases. Many illegitimate cases are being waved through because of the Labour Party's desperation to another promise they made to close the hotels. Of course, we now know that more hotels are actually opening as well. There are cases in Cheshire where now former student accommodation, with hundreds of bedrooms, are now being sort of ready to see a new influx of individuals put up, and blighting that community as well. So they've made promise after promise, and I kind of think they suspected that because the British public was so sick with the Tories' mishandling of this situation that they'd be given a free pass. Unfortunately, they massively underestimated the sheer public anger that there is around this issue. It is one of, if not the most salient political issue, and one that really actually should be defining the local elections as well. It's a bit worrying that we're not hearing quite as much of candidates vying for local council places talking about what they do to clamp down on asylum seekers in their area as well, because of course there is things that local councils can be doing to make it more difficult for asylum seekers to be settled in their area.
Indeed, it is an issue that really energises the people, and politicians never seem to get it through their head. Old Boris Johnson, I don't think he understood it at all. He just thought it was a long way away, and I live in Highgate, there's no problems there, etc., etc. So politicians still can't quite understand that this is a very important issue. It's an election loser, to say the least. Last question to you, Robert. We know all about the enticements. Instead of deterrence, this government offers enticements. 45 quid a week, free hotel, free food, free doctors, free lawyers to fight your case to stay here, and the list goes on. We give them lots of gifts, lots of presents. We take them out for days at the zoo. Tours around the local football team, give them free driving lessons, free driving tests. Kent County Council last year spent £20 million on free driving lessons for migrants. £20 million on free driving lessons. Unbelievable. So this just constantly goes on. But here's the crux of it. This is really why they continue to come. Because until 3 years ago, we were allowing 75% of all asylum seeker applications were approved. So you're 75%. So 3 in every 4, that is, isn't it? Just about 3 in every 4 asylum applications were approved, and everybody, even the government, said, "Oh, we've got to get that number down. Yeah, that's too high. We're now allowing 45% to stay, so nearly half. The nearest equivalent to us, I think, is it's France, 30%, Germany, 12%. Other countries, numbers like 2% and 3% and 4%. We're still letting nearly half of the illegal migrants who turn up here stay. That's at the root of the problem. They know once they get here, they're pretty much home and dry, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that probably is actually one of the biggest inducements, in that Britain is, when you compare us to, especially what's going on in the continent, very much a soft touch. And we have actually seen certain flows that would otherwise have settled in Italy or places on the Mediterranean and been their problem because of the more stringent measures that they're introducing, start migrating their way up towards Northwest Europe. So I think our leniency on this issue is definitely one of the biggest pull factors. And we have to have an actual frank conversation about how, given we know the makeup of the immigration tribunals and the softness of the Home Office when it comes to actually processing these applications, how can we get to a position where we actually stop those flows and stop, compounding a problem that everyone across the board is admitting does exist, whether Labour or Conservative? Everyone seems to be admitting that the asylum system is creaking at the seams and is overburdened. So what can we actually do to address that? And I'd argue that one of the biggest things we can do is a temporary, at the very least, freeze on asylum claims.
Yeah, good idea. We certainly should do something, but whether or not this government will ever do anything is a moot point. Question we have to ask is just how committed are they to solving this crisis, and do they really want to close our borders properly? I don't think they do. Robert, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Robert Bates there, Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Does this government really want to solve the migrant crisis? Because it sure as hell isn't. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Your call's next. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is from Pam Travis. She says, regarding the withdrawal of compensation for child victims of the rapist gangs, it's not quite that, but point taken. Children are our future. How can the government give legal aid to illegal migrants, criminals, and in fact the grooming gangs too? Think of the millions spent on legal aid lawyers acting for foreign criminals to stay in the country, courtesy of the ECHR. You're right about that, Pam. Priorities of this government are driving this country into the ground. It is time the indigenous people were given jobs, depending on merit, obviously. Yeah, it's not quite victims of the grooming gangs. It's victims of child sex crimes while they were in orphanages, care homes, that kind of thing, schools, while they were effectively in the charge of the government, while the government was looking after them. And a lot of abuses happen in those circumstances, and there was an automatic way of kids like that getting compensation. Well, that automatic method has gone. after telling us we're no inquiries into the rape gang scandal whatsoever. This government is now not paying compensation to the victims of child sexual abuse when, in effect, these children were being looked after by the government. So that's good. Can't afford it. No money. £22 billion for a load of old carbon capture claptrap in Liverpool? Oh, sure, no problem. £11.6 billion. Oh, let's send that abroad for green projects in climate change areas abroad, foreign countries. So, I know. Let's send £15 billion abroad generally for foreign aid. But we can't afford to look after the welfare of children who were sexually abused while in the care of this government. Good, isn't it? 03444991000. Let's talk to Claire in the Wirral. Hello, Claire.
Hi, Kevin. Hiya.
Hi. What would you like to say?
Well, I'm absolutely fuming, actually, Kevin. With this scrapping of the child abuse payouts.
It's good, isn't it?
We've already had the scrapping of the inquiry. And talking about inducement to the migrants, coming in and being taken out for day trips out and going to amusement parks. Now they've got more of an inducement. Now they have children, that they can prey on. Because actually, child trafficking and Starmer and Jeff Phillips are enabling these child traffickers now by turning a blind eye and not letting the children, have any voice or any recourse. And they know it, and they know that this country is going downhill and our children are being preyed on. And, what you were saying about the rape gangs, actually, the children that were being abused very often were in homes.
And they
were vulnerable children. And they've stopped all that as well. And it's not really the money. It's not the money, and it's not even the money that they're thinking of. They are just letting all this happen, just letting go of it, because they know that these traffickers, it's growing. It's a problem that is constant. As Adela said, it's a growing problem. And I feel so sad, so sorry. Yes. I'm really, really worked up about this now.
Yeah, it's a good point that you made, Claire, and I should stress this as well, that it's very possible. I mean, technically, the axing of this compensation scheme for the victims of child sexual abuse doesn't precisely refer to kids who are victims of the grooming gangs, but you're exactly right. A lot of them were in care anyway, so there is a crossover. And just generally, I think, Claire, it's a sort of window into the psyche of this government and what their attitude seems to be towards these poor kids. I would have thought there's nothing more important than the welfare of children who are in the care of the state who have been sexually abused. This government doesn't want to give us any inquiries into the worst sexual abuse scandal in the history of this nation. And B, they don't want to give anybody any compensation money because they say they can't afford it, but they can afford £22 billion for Ed Miliband's crazy carbon capture scheme. This government's all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah, it's disgusting, actually, and it's the abusers that they can find money for, to pay for the abusers for their court cases and so on. They really, really don't care, and they're really turning a blind eye. And I think that since they've stopped the inquiry into the rape gangs, and it's not just rape gangs, child trafficking takes all different kinds of, ways to get these vulnerable children that are being preyed on. And all these people coming over here with their barber shop and they're laundering their money and their nail bars and their cosmetic shops and God knows what. Where is that money coming from? It's coming from prostitution and child prostitution and child trafficking, and it's disgraceful. And I think, the whole thing about this rape gangs, it's the worst thing that's ever happened in this country
It's one of the worst things, and it's certainly the worst sort of wide-scale sexual crime scandal.
And it's still going on.
It's still happening, most people believe,
it's
absolutely.
Happening. And as Adela says, it's happening even more. And we're all just turning a blind eye to it. And, you know, they know they're just coming in and they're trafficking all these children now. I dread to think what scale it would be on. And it's not really just the money, because they know they've got their finger on it. But they've put the boot in. They've really put the boot into this country.
Yeah, they got their priorities all wrong, Claire. Claire, brilliant phone call as always. Keep in touch. We'll talk again soon. Claire in the Wirral. Let's go to break. When we come back, we will talk about the invasion of the killer hornets, as I talked about earlier, so stand by for that.
I have grave concerns where you have a situation whereby those people are literally put into accelerated justice procedures and get into jail for long sentences within a very short period of time. At the same time, you have things like well-recorded incidents, such as the incident at Manchester Airport, where it took the police months to charge those people who there's clear evidence of wrongdoing on their behalf. So that's
clear evidence of a very, very serious crime taking place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We'll talk about killer hornets in just a second, but just stop Hoyle. This just in, he's done it again. Sir Lindsay Hoyle. He's been jetting around the planet again at our expense. In February, it turns out that he had his second most expensive trip ever. This has only just emerged, folks. He billed us, the taxpayers, £23,000, £23,264 for business class flights, £1,163 worth of hotels for him and two staff, and a further £418 splashed out on meals, and nearly £300 on taxis and other ground ground transportation. So that's £23,264 on a trip to Malaysia in February. He's done it again. Just stop Hoyle. When is he going to stop wasting our money like this? 0344 499 1000. Extraordinary, extraordinary. We're going to be taking calls later on in the show. I want to hear from you on that. Right, let's talk about Asian hornets. Now, I've covered this story a few times. They kind of arrived in Europe from the Far East, I think, on sort of cargo ships or ships down in the Mediterranean. And they've been kind of making their way up slowly up through France, north, further and further north through Europe. And we've had a lot of vigilance going on in the Channel Islands because they've set up home there, and we've been destroying nests there, left, right and centre. But people have been warning us they will make it to Britain. They have been spotted in Britain, but now because of the conditions, the weather conditions, and because of the numbers of killer Asian hornets they've been seeing in the Channel Islands, they fear that we could be set for the summer invasion of the Asian hornets, and you don't want to know about that. Let's talk to someone with a great sounding job, Asian Hornet Coordinator, Mark White. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Good evening, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us. Well, look, we're hearing, as I said, I've been doing these stories now for a couple of years. As you know, they've had special squads in the Channel Islands trying to sort of snuff them out before they get to Britain. But we've already had some reports that Asian hornets are in Britain. And now I'm reading at the weekend that the conditions are ripe for what you might call a bit of an invasion. I gather these hornets, they particularly like pub beer gardens. They like to hover above them. What is it we should be afraid of with these things?
For us humans, we shouldn't be too afraid per se. As beekeepers, we need to be afraid because around 35% of the Asian hornet's diet is honeybees. But not just that, our local and biodiversity for the UK is potentially under threat as a result of these hornets arriving here in the UK.
And they got this name killer hornets, which is probably slightly an exaggeration, but if you do upset them around their nest, I gather that it is possible they'll attack you in a swarm, and you don't want that to happen. They can be fatal. I mean, they're aggressive little things, aren't they?
They potentially can be. If you were out in a field and you saw one Asian hornet on its own, the likelihood of it becoming aggressive is very small. However, there have been a number of reports both in the Channel Islands and on mainland Europe of people wandering slightly a little bit too close to an Asian hornet nest, which could be hiding in a tree or more ground level, a bush. And the vibration through to the nest can trigger them to attack en masse.
And how big are they, Mark? What's the sort of length? What kind of length are they?
They're actually smaller than our native European hornets. So they're a fraction smaller. The best way to describe it, they're probably no bigger than a £2 coin. But they are very distinctive compared to our native hornets because they're the only variety of hornets in the UK that have knees from the knees down to their legs, which are yellow, hence the name why we call them the yellow-legged hornet.
Okay, and whereabouts, they've got that other name, Asian, which some people said was racist, but I'm taking it geographically. Whereabouts do they hail from originally?
They do come from China, the Chinese area, hence the name Asian hornet. Yeah. The Latin name is actually Vespertina nigrithorax, Vesper valentina nigrithorax. So, but the quickest term is the yellow-legged hornet, and that's something that we now go on. Simply because it's more impacted with local communities. They will understand it better.
Yeah, so they know to watch out if you see hornets with yellow legs. If you do see a nest or a swarm of these things, what do you advise that we do?
Well, we encourage people to download the Asian Hornet Watch app, which is available from many outlets. And this will allow you to, if you are lucky enough to get close to one, to be able to identify it. And if you take a photograph, it's uploaded and sent directly to the National Bee Unit, who will be able to identify it and its location. And in turn, they will notify us coordinators on the ground. And we can start trying to track and trace where this potentially nest is and try and eradicate it before it has a chance to grow or potentially release queens into the local community.
How big would the queen be?
Again, no bigger than a £2 coin.
Okay, so not necessarily that massive, no.
Yeah, this time of year, we're likely more to see an Asian hornet queen or a yellow-legged hornet queen than we are workers, as they've come out of hibernation and they're starting to establish their first embryonic nests. So hence the reason why we're seeing a surge in the Channel Islands and potentially today citing a confirmed case in Southampton.
Oh, really? Really? You're in Dorset, aren't you?
We are. I'm only about 20 miles away from where the confirmed case was at Marchwood in Southampton.
Oh my God!
So hence the reason we're actually having an Asian Hornet meeting this evening when you guys called us and asked us to appear on the show. So it's quite timely, apt, and appropriate. So we're asking people to keep an eye out for them. The conditions that we've had over the last couple of weeks of prolonged hot weather has allowed more Asian hornet queens to survive the winter period, and which would normally have killed them off. So we're seeing greater numbers.
Yeah. So this is quite disturbing in a way, certainly for people like me who are a bit scared of insects in the first place. But you mentioned that you're Asian Hornet Coordinator, you're in Dorset. If people see a nest or they see a swarm of these things, what's the phone number? Who can they get in touch with?
Well, you can contact your local bee association, but we do encourage people to download the Asian Hornet Watch app because that has a direct link through to the relevant government body, the National Bee Unit, who will be able to deploy the relevant resources to the area. But we are the first boots on the ground, as it were, the local bee associations. Unfortunately, it's landed on our lap because it buzzes and it stings, so they naturally assume it's a bee.
That you're an expert on it, but you don't want your bees to be affected. So what is it called again, Mark? What the people have got to get in touch with the Hornet? What?
Via the Asian Hornet Watch app.
The Asian Hornet Watch app, yeah?
Yeah, and then that goes through to a load of people at the National Bee Unit, and they are able to determine whether it's a positive sign.
All right, Mark, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. That's Mark White from Asian Hornet Coordinator. Next up, Kingsley Schofield on the Royal. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is
welcome back. In about 25 minutes or so, we'll be taking your calls. I would like your thoughts on the following. First of all, this disgraceful, in my view, denial by this bunch of idiot MPs telling us that there was no evidence there was any two-tier policing in Southport during the summer riots. No evidence of any two-tier policing at all. Are they looking at the same Southport riots as I was? Because it struck me there was quite a lot of two-tier policing, and it struck everybody else. So your thoughts that these MPs are just gaslighting us and telling us that what we know to be true isn't true? How dare they? 03444991000. Also, I want to get your views on the fact yet another police force seems to be adopting some kind of racist policy, heading out onto the streets to look for ethnic and Muslim young people who want to become coppers. Rookie recruits have to be ethnic or Muslim. That's good, isn't it? Alongside West Yorkshire Police, which is currently banning white people from applying to become coppers. So why are our police forces becoming so racist, banning people on the colour of their skin? That doesn't seem right. Net zero, the steel collapse is the government's fault, isn't it? Their ridiculous net zero policies. The Chinese owners are out of here. They've had to step in and nationalise British Steel because Ed Miliband demanding the kind of net zero policies that will never allow industry to prosper. So they're going to carry on running that as a massive, great loss maker. So that's good, isn't it? Also, Ed Miliband's hypocrisy, jetting around the world while telling us we've got to save the planet, 45,000 miles. Since he became net zero, flies always first class or business. His staff have spent 700 grand between December and September and December. 700 grand flying around the world, business class, and so on and so forth. That hypocrisy of those greenies. Let me know what you think about that. And as I say, this just in, he's at it again. Just Stop Hoyle. It doesn't look like we're ever going to stop him. He's at it again. Lindsay Hoyle, the jet-setting, globe-trotting Speaker of the House. Order, order. That's all he does. Apart from flying around the world at our expense, he's done it again. In February, he went to Malaysia, racked up £23,264 in expenses, and that takes his expenditure on foreign trips since he became Speaker in November 2019. This is how much he spent of our money: £324,874. Guy's got to be stopped, hasn't he? 03444991000, as in Just Stop Oil. And what about the fact the government has cancelled the child sex abuse victims compensation scheme? No more money for them. 03444991000. And of course the migrant crisis, 656 more migrants crossed the channel illegally on Saturday, and the government's doing nothing about it. So get on the phone about any of those issues. 03444991000. We'll talk in a little while. It's good to talk on Talk. Now let's go across to the West Coast and talk to royal guru Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Kevin, I was just reading an article. You know, I love my tabloid gossip. I was just reading an article about how Harry and Meghan are in couples therapy because Prince Harry has PTSD over Meghan's Suits sex scenes. So we'll have to discuss this at great length tomorrow because it made me laugh.
Yeah. That sounds completely true, that story, doesn't it? Sounds like an excellent tabloid story. But let's talk about them, shall we? Harry's demented contention that the royal family deliberately took away his armed police protection to make him and Meghan stay in Britain. This is his new line. So this armed police protection that he's insisting on, he's demanding on, he's wasting millions of pounds on, he's never going to get it. He says that the royal family deliberately took away his armed protection and Meghan's and the kids in a bid to make them stay in Britain. As experts are saying, well, it's not the royal family's decision whether or not Harry gets armed protection. It's nothing to do with the royal family. What's he talking about now?
Well, this is the evolution of versions of different stories that we've heard from Prince Harry when it comes to his security issues. You and I both know, based on independent sources that we have, that the royal family is thrilled that they don't have to deal with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in the UK anymore. Does he really expect us to believe that they were trying to trap them there because they were so important to the royal fold, because they were such valuable assets to the team, that they were going to take away their security so that they would be stuck and have to become slaves to the royal family system? I mean, it's just so unbelievably unrealistic. And life's unfair, Kevin. To be quite honest, life's unfair. I saw a quote because of Prince Harry, had to do an interview immediately following this and complain about his circumstances. Life is unfair, and you and I and your listeners and viewers at home, we just don't have millions of dollars to sue everybody and to have hissy fits on such a global scale like Prince Harry does. And I wish that he would just accept that sometimes things don't work out the way that he wants them to. Losing his security was a consequence of his own actions, and he needs to move on. But it's hard to take him seriously about being concerned about his safety when he hops on a plane and goes directly into a war zone following this fight.
Exactly right. Absolutely bizarre. I'm not safe here. Just off to Ukraine. Oh, you're going to be safe there, are you? Nothing he says makes much sense. Certainly not in this case. And experts, royal insiders are reeling back, kind of in horror, about this nonsense. Oh, they deliberately took my armed police protection away from me because they wanted me to stay in Britain. Well, first of all, that's not exactly a central reason, is it, not to leave Britain? And secondly, as I say, the royal family can't do that. It's not within their gift. The king doesn't run the show, This is a special security committee that sits in judgment and decides whether or not members of the royal family warrant armed police protection. Harry no longer does because he's not a frontline royal. They say that when he comes back sometimes, if they think the circumstances are right, they might give him a few cops with guns. But they'll do it on a case-by-case basis. That's not good enough for him. He pursues this case and all he's doing is losing himself a lot of money.
Well, how is this not good enough for him? I mean, 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10 times, we do know that he is given that exact security, a level of security that he wants. But a source did say that winning the case that he was fighting last week will not restore his security. All it will mean is that Harry will score a technical point that the way the decision was made was wrong. But even if he does win this case, that doesn't change the status of his security. So, I tell you that because I want you to think of what the ultimate objective was in Prince Harry going out there and parading around London and Windsor, where he stayed in a hotel instead of staying at one of the palaces where he's been invited to stay when he visits so that he can have the security that he expects, but he's shunned them every single time. I'd argue that I think that this was all to distract from the Senabale drama, because that's been absolutely humiliating and defeating for him to quit his own charity and to be humiliated by Dr. Sophie Shandaka, who's accused him of, basically misogyny and bullying and a lot of the things that both him and Meghan Markle have accused others of. So I feel like aside from rudely distracting from his father's state visit to Italy, his father's meeting with the Pope, his father celebrating his 20th wedding anniversary, yes, he distracted from all of those things, but I also think intentionally he was trying to distract from the Senabale drama and change the conversation and position himself back into victim mode where he's most comfortable.
Exactly right, and that's what he's doing here. But mainly, he just wants the same as what his brother gets. That's what this is about.
But this fight, he'll never have like this.
He's not going to get it. He's not going to win. He's going to lose this case. Yeah. He keeps being told by judge after judge. The latest sort of statement filed into the court was from the Home Office, the barristers for our Home Security Department here in Britain, which was this Harry's case, or Harry's continued pursuit of this case, this lost cause, demonstrates a continuing failure to see the wood from the trees. He's been told he's never going to win this case. What is he doing? It's almost childlike, isn't it?
It is. It is a very expensive public meltdown. He's having a hissy fit, and this is a man that clearly got his way for nearly 40 years. And when he meets Meghan Markle, starts asking for some very unrealistic things. And the royal family had to set him straight. And in reality, they were trying to get him to see some reality, I think, for the very first time. And instead of Harry and Meghan having the patience to sit back, get through the pandemic, and figure out truly where their place was within the system, they quit their jobs, went out in a blaze of glory on Tyler Perry's private jet, and then spent the next 3 to 4 years slandering the royal family, trying to discredit the family, and they wonder why no one wants to play with them. Nobody wants to, they're going to take their ball and go home because nobody wants to engage with them anymore. They're untrustworthy, they're vindictive, and they have a lack of work ethic that people are noticing.
Well, let's talk about old Meghan. While Ginger Nuts continues his lost cause legal case, she seems to be trying to turn herself into the cash cow of the century, selling everything left, right and centre. Looks like she's put some more stuff on sale now as we approach Easter. But the reviews are coming in from the As Ever food selection. So you've got Did
you ever get your package?
Yeah, it's arrived. It's coming. It's on its way across the Atlantic as we speak. But so I can't personally attest to this. But a lot of people who've tried this stuff says that her jam or her non-jam is watery, tasteless, and just not very nice. And that most of the rest of the produce is nothing to write home about. And I've got to say that if, for example, you're going to spend, what is it, $28 on a jar of honey, have you seen the packaging? It's really cheap and nasty. So, £28 or $28 for a single, you've got to make that very special. So what I would suggest is if that many people are buying this stuff first time around, and I doubt that, frankly, but if a lot of people are buying it and they get this cheap packaging, watery jam, tasteless tea, apparently. The tea just tastes like water and so on. So not very good produce, cheap and nasty packaging. They're not going to get any second helpings. People aren't going to come back and buy more, are they?
No, but, those, she did have like limited edition packaging, which some people are complaining about, saying that the way that it's shaped, the way the inside of it's shaped, Meghan says you can like keep teeny tiny keepsakes in it or love notes, whatever.
It's a tube. It's a box.
Yeah, but everybody's like, it's so shaped awkwardly on the inside. Like, I don't know what I'd put inside of this. So I don't know if is that what you're talking about?
Well, sort of. I mean,
box, or is it just in general?
But all of it looks really cheap to me. It looks really cheap. Yeah, and you're right. It's one of the. They say, well, you can use the box as a permanent keepsake for your lovely possessions. Well, that's ridiculous. That's like sort of saying, look, I bought this packet of cigarettes, and when I finish the cigarettes, you can use it as a beautiful container for your jewellery or something. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, perhaps all of the bells and whistles and the extra cost that, you know, you're forking over is so Meghan can afford the 4-car motorcade she had last week when she went to New York to see Gypsy on Broadway, the presidential motorcade that everybody was complaining about in New York, how unnecessary it was and how ridiculous it looked for her to have the decoy and the cop car and all of those things. You are financing Meghan Markle's ridiculous delusions if you are purchasing some of her products. And shame on you, is what I say.
Well, no, shame on you. You're an idiot. That's what I'd say. Now, let's talk about old Meghan. You talked about her pretensions, her glorified idea of her own importance. Well, she's published a letter addressed to her wrongly as Your Royal Highness. You remember that what part of the deal is, all right, we'll give you this silly little title, the Duchess of Sussex or whatever it is you want to be called, but you can't call yourself Your Royal Highness anymore. Well, she's accepted a letter and published a letter for someone addressing her as Your Royal Highness. This is from Ukraine's Vice Prime Minister, Yulia. Oh, I knew I'd do this. Well, is their first name Yulia? Syriadenko.
And you know what? Yarulia doesn't know how to address people correctly, so you're fine.
Yeah.
You're forgiven.
Yeah.
Obviously, Yarulia's not doing her homework.
Well, so the letter starts, Your Royal Highness, I would like to express my sincere thanks for everything your family is doing for Ukraine. Which I would say is absolutely nothing, actually.
Zero.
But the fact that she's the fact
you
she's
and I
published.
both know that the Ukraine visit was Harry and Meghan's. That was a way for them to take a swipe at Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with them supporting Ukraine. It has everything to do with the fact that Donald Trump continues to lash out at them, and this is Harry and Meghan trying to take a swipe at Donald Trump.
Yeah, I agree. But as I say, what Meghan has done is taken this letter from Ukraine's Vice Prime Minister and published it on Instagram, on her site, addressing her as Your Royal Highness. And she's catching a lot of flack for including the Your Royal Highness bit. She still likes the idea of being called that, even though she doesn't deserve it, does she?
No, Meghan Markle is poking the bear. I have it on good authority that Prince William wants to strip them of their titles. And the Sussexes, according to reports here, want reassurance from King Charles that Prince William won't be able to do that, in the future, strip them of their titles, because they know how much that would hurt their commercial opportunities. Harry and Meghan are the new Fergie and Andrew, if you ask me. I think that they cheapen the crown. And the only thing HRH stands for in association with Meghan Markle is High Ruthless Homewrecker, because she is not a royal highness. I think that she has terrorized this family, and the way that she continues to disrespect the Queen after her death is vulgar. And I do hope that they're stripped of any sort of title whatsoever. Prince Harry will always be Prince Harry. He's the son of the king, but he doesn't need all the bells and whistles, because the reality is he's an unemployed resident of the state of California. He doesn't keep a regular job. In the jobs he does have, better up, whatever. What the heck does he do? What is his job description? And Meghan Markle is a glorified influencer. I did see one of Prince William's friends comment on this, and I really agreed with them. They said it's actually quite a clever way of testing the water, because there is deniability there for Meghan. She can just say, well, I just wanted to publish this nice letter to raise awareness for Ukraine, and oops, they got got my name wrong, but oh, actually, now that I think about it, I never gave up that title anyway, and maybe I should start using it again. They said it's a step in the wrong direction, away from the agreement. You'd have to be an idiot. This is Prince William's friend. You'd have to be an idiot to believe that she didn't know exactly what she was doing when she posted that message unedited to her stories. And this is also, if you think about it, on a website, Instagram, where she's shilling eyeliner on Amazon, where she's shilling her loose fruit spread. She's endorsing this stuff and putting her title out there on a website that she's, you know, selling things. So that to me is that incredibly disrespectful and violates the negotiations, the agreement that Harry and Meghan made with the royal family upon leaving. And one of King Charles's friends said something about how it was important to the family that Harry and Meghan leave with dignity, leave with pride. And I saw that during Megxit. It was Harry and Meghan that did not see that didn't see how good they had it compared to somebody like Wallace and Edward, and were so vindictive, mean, and bitter and spiteful throughout the process of trying to digest that information and come to terms with that information. And I've had some people contact me and say they blame King Charles for not being harder on them. Kevin, I'd have to ask your opinion, because I do think that they got away with a lot. I think that they continue to get away with a lot, and I'm unhappy about it.
Well, Charlie the King is notorious. He hates confrontation. He cannot stand face-to-face conflict. So rather than say to those two, the gruesome twosome, listen, you're pushing your luck, you're abusing your royal titles we gave you, and if you're not careful, I'll take them away from you. Charlie is the kind of guy who'll just let things go. He won't do anything. So he's quite a weak man. Everybody knows that, and doesn't like confrontation. So hence the Sussexes have got away with murder. They've got away much more with much more than they should have done. But just last question, really. We know what she's doing. She's busy. She was the one who was going to change the world, wasn't she? Make it a better place. And here she is, 5 years on. She's flogging watery, tasteless fruit spread on the internet. It didn't quite work out for her, did it? But at least we know what she's doing. I mean, apart from coming over here to pursue his fatuous lawsuit, he didn't have to come over last week, and then jetting off to Ukraine for reasons that were hard to work out. What is this guy doing with his life? Anything?
I think that what you saw last week was a PR stunt. And I think that he's busy trying to, well, actually, I just reported on this. There are reports that these two are trying to figure out who has it out for them in Hollywood, that there's a probe going on, an investigation into who is sabotaging their career. I mean, you and I both know that there are 16 bathrooms in the house that probably have mirrors, in case that they're that curious as to who's really blowing this up for them. They might just want to go take a peek in the mirror. But there are reports that they are putting out feelers to try to figure out who's out there blacklisting them because they're angry at their failed projects.
It's never them, is it? It's never them, is it? Oh, it's not us. Meghan basically, it's not that I'm a terrible bully to all of my staff. Harry, it's not that I'm a colonial racist bully. It's someone else's fault. The only reason people are saying I'm a bully to my staff is because there's someone out there who's got it in for us. Did they ever think? Or did Meghan ever think, maybe, Meghan, you are a bully to your staff? How about that? That never occurs to them, that it could be that they're in the wrong. Always want to blame someone else, don't they?
Amen. You said it, Kev.
Right, and on that bombshell, I think we'll talk about this a bit more tomorrow when we record the next episode of your excellent podcast. Recollections may vary, so we'll talk again tomorrow. Kinsey, in the meantime, thank you once again for a brilliant 25 minutes or so. Always a pleasure. Kinsey Schofield there on the gruesome twosome and all that's going on with them. You give me a call about them if you like, 03444991000. When we come back after this break, we'll be taking your calls. I'll be reading out your WhatsApp voice notes and some of your messages as well. Keep your calls coming in, 03444991000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
I have grave concerns where you have a situation whereby those people are literally put into accelerated justice procedures and get into jail for long sentences within a very short period of time. At the same time, you have things like well-recorded incidents, such as the incident at Manchester Airport, where it took the police months to charge those people who there's clear evidence of wrongdoing on their behalf. So that's
clear evidence of a very, very serious crime taking place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Time for your calls. Before we go to the phones, we've got some WhatsApp voice notes. Here's the first one. This is Dave on two-tier policing. Take it away, Dave.
Hi, Kev. It was definitely two-tier policing because they hold the hand with the lefties, the scumbags, and they beat the out the English patriotic white man. Absolutely disgusting. And to cover up them three little girls, 125 times that little girl was stabbed. God, I'm surprised things didn't get worse with the riots. Absolutely disgrace. Absolute disgrace. Disgusting.
I agree, Dave. It's a disgrace that these MPs have just run away with Keir Starmer's clear claptrap when he's going, oh, it's not really protest. Yes, it was. You know, they're not protesting. They are. They were. Don't be so ridiculous. You might not like the form of protest, but that was protest. And most people at those, quote, riots were peaceful. Don't get the idea that everybody who went there was some kind of violent maniac. And they weren't. Most of them were peaceful protesters protesting about the migrant crisis because they'd heard that the perpetrator of this terrible murder, triple murder, plus was it 8-9 more people terribly injured, was some kind of migrant. Turned out to be the son of migrants, so it wasn't that far off. And there was definitely a terrorist connection because he had an Al-Qaeda manual and enough ricin poison to kill thousands of people. So there was a terrorist connection, but we weren't told that. We were kept in the dark. Which is a disgrace. 03444991000. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Chris. He's a new caller, always like a new caller, and he's in Sunderland. Hello, Chris.
Hi there, how's it going? You all right?
Oh, I'm all right. What would you want to talk about? Axel Rudicabana?
Yeah, basically, I'm from Sunderland. Like you say, I'm from that far right fuggery town.
Oh, you're not one of those far-right working-class white thugs, are you?
Oh, absolutely not. Basically, Sunderland, we've observed, the rest of the country going, downhill. And like you say, we have like one of the lowest immigration levels in the UK. So we see what's happening out there. And anyways, when it came to this whole two-tier policing, where they've come out and say, oh no, there's definitely no two-tier system, but then it was only up until like a week ago they had to move some legislation to basically cancel this new law coming through. An absolute.
So they're cancelling compensation to the victims of child sexual abuse. They've cancelled any inquiries into the rape gang. Yeah. Scandal. So you wonder what on earth is going on in their minds. But I mean, to stare us in the face, these MPs from the Home Affairs Committee, to stare the nation in the face, you, Chris, me, everyone, and say we've got no evidence, we can find no evidence of two-tier policing in Southport. I mean, were they looking at the same riot as we were?
I don't know, but do you know what? When it comes to the Sunderland riots specifically, like you said, there was obviously it was documented quite widely because we burned down we did burn down the Sunderland police station. But I actually was coming back from B&Q on the way home, and I actually went through pretty much the protest. It was a protest, and I know the posture of because I was in the army for 17 years. And I was driving through, and it was relatively peaceful. Genuinely, it was a protest, and I parked up because it was quite, to see all those people. There was a lot of energy there, and I observed all these riot vans come in, and it was like it was almost like the posture from the police. That's what happened.
Yeah, I agree with you. You could see it you could see it everywhere. Yeah, that the response of the police to the white working class rioters was definitely heavy-handed.
I've always respected the police, always. Like, I joined the army at 16, tried to be a law-abiding citizen, and but I have lost complete faith in this whole country, and I'm losing sort of like, what's the point? What is the point of me, doing what I want to do to make this country better, or like to better myself?
Yeah, you feel impotent, don't you? I think we all do. We can see what's going on. We've got a government gaslighting us in this instance, saying, "Oh no evidence of."
I think the last resort.
Yeah, it's like, stop lying to us. Stop lying to us. We've got eyes. We can see what's going on. We're not stupid. And so there's this feeling that we've got all these problems, like the migrant crisis, and this government won't talk to us about it. They just say, no, nothing to see here.
Like, our armed forces is about 200,000, but you've got about 250,000, and that's about the ones we
don't think we got that many more, Chris. I think it's quite a few fewer than that. I mean, that as well. Listen, Chris, really good call. I've got to move on because the show's getting on a bit. But really good to talk to you. Keep in touch. Call me again. That was Chris in Sunderland. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk to Jason in Coventry. Stay where you are, Jason.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We'll go back to the phones in just a second. First of all, though, here's a WhatsApp voice note. It's from Judy, and again, it's on two-tier policing.
There is two-tier policing. Look at how many were arrested in the Southport riots, and look how many were arrested in the Hare Hills riots, where the police ran away and left them to it. I think there were 27 arrested in Hare Hills riot. Well, there were over 1,000 arrested in the Southport. That's two-tier policing. A riot's a riot, and if you arrest 1,000 at one, you should be arresting at least 1,000 at another.
Exactly right. That is two-tier policing. You're exactly right. Apart from Hare Hills was the riot that happened before the Southport horror, and that was an ethnic riot, and the police pulled out. West Yorkshire Police, that's the racist police force that won't allow white people to apply to be coppers there because of the colour of their skin. So that's the wokest police force in all of Britain. They pulled out. And they allowed the rioters to do their worst for 5 hours. They pretty much destroyed the entire area because the coppers pulled out. Amazing, hey? In Birmingham, the police, when there was a Muslim riot in the same time, this was the local Muslim community rising up in fury, the police decided not to go in, and they said, oh, well, we didn't want to exacerbate the situation. So they didn't really bother with the Muslim rioters, but white working class rioters, they were down on them like a ton of bricks, weren't they? Two-tier policing, ladies and gentlemen. It's obvious. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Jason in Coventry. Hi, Jason.
Hiya, are you okay?
I'm all right, mate.
First time caller on your show. I love your show. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, you're welcome, Jason, and thank you for calling. Don't make it your last call. What would you like to say?
Well, I just want to, like I say, about the two-tier care shit. Oh, I nearly said it. Two-tier care.
We're letting that go. We're letting that go because it's getting on late, but no more swearing, all right? Go on.
You know,
I know what you mean. I'm with you in spirit, but we can't say that sort of thing.
Do you know, I voted Labour back in '97, was it, with Tony Blair, and I realised my mistake back then, and I never voted Labour this time round because I never forgot. And this care is scary. They say you should be afraid of the right wing. No, you shouldn't. You should be scared of the left wing.
I agree.
Scary.
Yeah, they're scary. They're nasty. They're two-tier.
yeah, and I'm scared of my British. I was brought up by mother and dad to appreciate King Henry VIII, Richard III, all our heritage. And our cars, our manufacturing, just think, and I grow up with proudness. Now, Kia seems to be eradicating that and just wants to get rid of Britishness altogether.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we sort of should get too lost in wonder about Henry VIII.
Yeah.
Last of the Tudor feminists, if you know what I mean. But I'm only being facetious. You're exactly right. These people don't like our history. They don't like our traditions. And we're being undermined at every turn. You're exactly right, Jason.
Is it our fault that we should apologise?
No, it isn't our fault, and we should not apologise. But we've got problems with a terrible government, and we're stuck with them for the next 4 years. Jason,
how can we get rid of them?
Yeah,
how can we?
I'll tell you, we have to wait till the next election. There's nothing else we can do. It's not good, is it? I wish I could offer you a better option, but I can't. We have to wait, and it's going to be a tough wait. But listen, Jason, that was your first call. As I say, don't make it your last. Call me again. That was an excellent conversation. Thank you very much. Jason in Coventry. Let's quickly talk to Leonard in Maidenhead. Hi, Leonard.
Hi, Kevin. It's Kevin, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be me. Yeah, I'm the host of the show. Yeah. Yeah, it is Kevin. It is Kevin. Yeah. Hi.
Right, Kevin. I want to discuss this matter of all these illegal boat people arriving from France and being put in all these nice hotels.
Yes, I've seen all of that, yes.
Yeah, just an example. Donald Trump has already said on his watch that wouldn't happen. He said he would empty all those hotels in one day, which I believe he could. He said he would simply empty all the hotels, put them on boats, and drop them off on the beaches of France.
Keir Starmer said that?
No, sorry, Trump said that.
Oh, Trump
said
that.
He said
Yeah,
that.
sorry.
He said
You're going to say Keir Starmer, I wish.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, isn't it? He's the problem. He's in the way of all this. But Trump did actually say, like he's good at these sort of speeches, he would end it all in one day. He said he would empty all those hotels in one day, load them on boats, and drop them off on the beaches of France. And he says there's not a damn thing they could do about it.
There is that,
but I believe he would do it. That's the main thing.
But it doesn't really matter whether he'd do it or not. The question is would Keir Starmer do it? Would Kemi Bader not do it? They wouldn't, would they?
No, of course. Keir Starmer's not going to do it. He's simply too weak.
I'm not sure.
He doesn't want to upset anybody.
Totally
and he
agree.
wouldn't dare drop them back on the beaches of France.
No, totally.
Well, Donald Trump would, but the difference between them is Donald Trump is stronger than him.
And also, Leonard, Donald Trump genuinely, I mean, he's doing it now, he genuinely wanted to and wants to solve America's migrant crisis. They've got a massive migrant crisis, or they have had, coming across the southern border. Millions of Latinos coming up from the South America and Mexico and the like. Now, Donald Trump has closed that down. He's actually literally closed it down to almost nothing. And that's because he wants to solve their migrant crisis. Why isn't Keir Starmer, and for that matter, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, why aren't they solving our migrant crisis? Is it, and I put this question to you, is it because they don't really want to? Because that's what I think.
That's what I think. I'm thinking he can't be bothered, and he's taken us all for fools.
I think it's more than that. That these people, these Labour socialists, they don't like the idea of borders, of secure borders. They like the idea of foreigners just being able to come here and live here. They like that. And that's why they're not solving our migrant crisis, because they philosophically do not want to.
Yeah, but he's taken us for fools just the same. The fact that he can run up £1 million a day, millions and millions of pounds a day, in putting them all in hotels. Now he's paying for their driving lessons. Next thing, you're going to be buying them a car when they pass their test.
Well, of course, yeah. Well, they're bound to do that. They already do buy. The government buys 1 in every 5 cars to give to people on disability benefits. That's good, isn't it? This country is a nut house, Leonard, a basket case, and everything this government is doing is pretty much wrong. But good to talk to you. New caller, call me again, Leonard. That was excellent. Leonard in Maidenhead there. Let's go to break. When we come back, more calls, more WhatsApp voice notes, and I'll read some messages out.
have grave concerns where you have a situation whereby those people are literally put into accelerated justice procedures and get into jail for long sentences within a very short period of time. At the same time, you have things like well-recorded incidents, such as the incident at Manchester Airport, where it took the police months to charge those people who there's clear evidence of wrongdoing on their behalf. So that's
clear
that's
evidence of a very, very serious crime taking place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Most terrifying story of the night for me is the fact that we are bracing ourselves for the invasion of the killer Asian hornets. They're like that big, but they attack in swarms. They can kill you. They're very aggressive, and they're coming here. In fact, they're already here. We had an expert on to say they've just found a big nest in Southampton. So they've made it to Britain, and it could get worse because conditions are ideal for these insect monsters. So very frightening invasion of the killer hornets. Here's Steve on the subject of hornets. Take it away, Steve.
Good evening, Kev. The hornets, yeah, don't fret too much about this dangerous invasion that are a danger to the indigenous population, because they'll probably all be in 4-star hotels the minute they hit our shores. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they get 4-star hotel. They're on 45 quid a week, free food and all that, yeah. I wouldn't put it past them. But anyway, some more migrants for us to worry about. Illegal migrants. Killer Asian hornets. That's good, isn't it? It's going to be a thing this summer. Another thing to worry about. Great. Probably the government will nationalise them or something. Keir Starmer will call another one of these emergency Saturday commons sessions that he doesn't have to call at all. Just trying to con us into the fact, oh, look at me, I'm the saviour of the nation, saving the steel industry. No, you caused it in the first place by your mad net zero claptrap. You and Miliband, you idiot. You did this, and you've got to stop it. You've got to stop it, otherwise this country's going to go to hell in a handcart. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Jake in Oxfordshire. Hi, Jake.
Hello, Kevin.
You want to talk about child abuse compensation?
That's right. I was listening earlier to what you were saying about the government has decided to scrap the compensation.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
And I can't help noticing that every time migrants come over, they still get all their handouts, and they have never. Well, that they shouldn't even be here, but they get treated very well, and anybody that's British just seems to be able to get nothing from this government.
Well, Jake, welcome to two-tier Britain. Yeah, this is what happens. Foreigners who come here get treated with kid gloves. We give them money, we give them lovely hotels, we give them lawyers, doctors, dentists, etc. Free food for life. Meanwhile, indigenous people here seem to get treated more and more terribly. And now the Labour government has axed this child abuse, sexual abuse compensation scheme. So if you're in a government care home or something like that, orphanage as a child, and you were sexually abused, you should be able to get compensation. But you can't, because the government says it can't afford it. But it can afford, for example, £11.6 billion to give to foreign nations, developing countries, for their green climate change projects. So that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, and they can also, 600 people, 650 arrived on Saturday.
656, yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to get put up in hotels and given the clothing, mobile phones, and free food every week.
Wow.
And every day we've got a number coming over. So that bill is increasing exponentially.
Yeah, we're spending billions. I think our asylum seeker bill is something like £15 billion a year now, and rising because there's more and more of them. It is ridiculous, Jake. It really is. Jake, I've got to move on, but very good call. Thank you for ringing. Please call me again. Jake in Oxfordshire there. So Hayes has sent me a message here. I've seen these hornets here in Maidstone in Kent over the past week. So if ever you see any of these, they got yellow legs. They're called the yellow-legged hornet or the Asian leg. They stopped just being able to call them the Asian hornets because that was deemed to be racist. But if you fancy calling them Asian hornets, do it. Just to piss off the wokies, OK? So let's all call them Asian hornets, but they're also called yellow-legged hornets. But if you do see any, let me know. 0344 499 1000. Let's go back to the phones and talk to Claude in Surrey. Hello, Claude.
Oh, hi, Kevin.
Hi. You want to talk about net zero and the steel industry that this government destroyed?
Yeah, that's right. So basically we have a climate crisis, but we also have
an alleged climate crisis, yes.
Well, we do. Well, why do we have hot conditions? And I think we also need to look at the elements where, you know, we're not meeting the climate goals, especially when we've got COP30 coming up.
Well, I would say let's forget about all that because it's ruining the country. It's given us the highest energy bills in the world, 5 times higher than America. Industry is now dying, including British Steel, all because of this net zero claptrap. So I think a good idea, Claude, would be just get rid of it. Axe all net zero nonsense.
Okay, well, if you believe that, then how come on an economic element the Home Affairs is not being invested by the government? I think it was very interesting that they only came back to government on Saturday to talk about steel and not the bins in Birmingham, which...
Well, they had to say if they didn't... Yeah, but, well, we got treated to a bit of deliberate political theatre. Keir Starmer deliberately whipped up the sense of emergency here. Look at me, I'm saving the steel industry. But if we didn't save the steel, if we didn't save those furnaces, they go out. You can never relight them. So we nearly lost our steel industry. So that's why the government's doing that.
And are they thinking what's the 10-year plan for investment? Did they make any clarity in regard to that?
Well, no, we're going to keep the government is going to run the steel industry and lose lots and lots of money. And you don't necessarily, Claude, it's up to you. You must look into it, but you don't want to buy into all of this net zero stuff. It's mostly just propagated by the Guardian. It doesn't really stack up if you look into it. And getting all stuck into all this net zero nonsense and save the planet and oh my God, climate change emergency. That's why we've ended up nearly losing our steel industry because of this maniac Ed Miliband and this nonsense about net zero. So we don't really need to do any of this. And the more we do, the more we'll go down the pan.
It was interesting if there was more of a consultation for the scientists to feel that they would be a better minister to deliver.
Well, some scientists say there's no climate change emergency. Depends. It pays your money, it takes your choice, Claude. Listen, good call though. Thank you very much, Claude in Surrey. Tarquin, just missed you, mate. Call me tomorrow night, all right? Tarquin in London. He wanted to talk about positive discrimination, the recruitment of ethnic communities, white people need not apply to West Yorkshire Police right now. That's racist, isn't it? Who's in the studio? It's Petri Hoskin. Oh, hang on, she's plugging herself in.
No, I can't.
No, she can't do it. She can't do it.
It's broken.
Now what am I going to do?
There you go. I'm on the other mic.
Have
right,
we done
found
it?
me.
Okay, hello.
That's not working. Hello, how are you?
I'm very, very well. What's on your show?
What is on my show? I'm going to be talking about Bukele, the El Salvadorian.
Oh, the guy with the prisons.
Yeah, and just because Donald Trump has now stated that he wants to send American assistance to these El Salvadorian prisons,
right.
Which is against all sorts of laws and rules and all things like that. But with the phone in, I want to talk about this and just say, if that was our Prime Minister suggesting that, what would you think about it? For criminals, we could send